You know that moment when someone tries to embarrass you in front of the entire family and your chest gets so tight you can barely breathe? That's exactly where I was standing, right there at our summer family barbecue, holding a paper plate with a half-assembled burger, when my brother decided to drop his favorite line loud enough for everyone to hear. "So, still renting, I bet?" he said, with that smirk plastered across his face like he'd just delivered the world's funniest punchline. Then he added, just to make sure everyone got the message, "One day you'll understand the value of owning something." The laughter that followed felt like tiny needles pricking my skin, and I could see it in their eyes, that sympathetic look people give you when they think you're financially behind. My throat burned, my jaw clenched, but I just smiled, that polite little smile you give when you're holding back everything you really want to say. What my brother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while he owned one house with a 30-year mortgage hanging over his head, I owned 12 properties valued at approximately $9.4 million, and he still thought I was the one just renting. Let me take you back so you understand how we got here. Because this wasn't just one comment at one barbecue. This was years of the same pattern repeating itself like a broken record. Growing up, my brother was the golden child who followed every traditional step. Good college, stable corporate job, marriage, then bought a house in the suburbs. Our family measures success like a checklist, and he checked every single box in the exact order they expected. I took a different route, moved to the city, rented an apartment, switched jobs trying to find what actually fit me, eventually started working for myself. And from that first unconventional choice, the lectures started. Every family gathering, every holiday, same questions dripping with judgment. When will you stop wasting money on rent? You need to get serious, buy a house, settle down, build equity like a responsible adult. My brother turned it into his personal comedy routine. "You still renting? How many landlords have you made rich by now?" And the family would laugh, shake their heads, pat me on the shoulder like I was a kid who just didn't understand. What they didn't see was what was happening behind the scenes. Those first few years, yeah, I was living paycheck to paycheck, but I was learning, studying real estate investing at 2 in the morning, understanding house hacking, duplexes, cash flow, equity. I bought my first property, a small condo, while still renting elsewhere and rented out the extra bedroom to cover most of my mortgage. Then I learned about refinancing, pulling equity, using one property to fund the next. I bought a duplex, lived in one unit, rented the other. Then a triplex, then a 4-unit building, then out-of-state deals where the numbers made more sense. Somewhere along the way, while my brother made jokes about me wasting money, I quietly built a portfolio of 12 properties with a combined market value around $9.4 million. But here's what nobody understood. I chose to keep renting my primary residence because it made financial sense, gave me flexibility, tax advantages, freed up capital to invest in income-generating properties instead of tying it all up in one house where I slept. To my family, success only looked one way: own the house you live in, period. If you rented, you were failing. They couldn't understand someone might intentionally rent while owning multiple rental properties. So I stayed quiet. Didn't post about properties on social media, didn't bring it up at dinners, didn't correct their assumptions. Part strategic to avoid pressure and drama, part curiosity to see how long they'd lecture me without ever asking real questions about my life. Turns out the answer was years, right up until that barbecue when everything changed. Summer afternoon, perfect weather, my parents' backyard packed with family. The grill was smoking, kids running around screaming, adults scattered in folding chairs with plastic drinks and cold drinks, speaker playing classic rock nobody listened to. The uncles were talking housing market, dropping phrases like interest rates and down payments like they were financial experts. I was by the food table building a burger when my aunt casually asked, "So, where are you living these days?" Innocent, small talk. Before I could answer, my brother's voice cut through. "Renting, obviously. He loves paying someone else's mortgage." Said it like stating the sky was blue, loud enough for half the backyard to hear. But he wasn't done. I even ran the numbers for them once, showed them how much money they've wasted. It's honestly sad when you add it all up. The crowd's reaction was exactly what he wanted. Laughter, head shakes, sympathetic glances thrown my way. My jaw clenched hard, fingers tightened around my plate until it bent, that familiar sinking feeling in my chest. He was in full professor mode now, hands gesturing. One day you'll get serious. You can't trick the system. Real estate is about ownership, equity, building wealth the right way. I just looked at him, face neutral, said nothing except a quiet, But inside, I was thinking about the spreadsheet with 12 addresses, 12 properties, monthly rent amounts, market values totaling $9.4 million. I was thinking how this man with one mortgage had no idea I owned 12 doors, and that one day he might rent from someone exactly like me in a building with my name on the deed. That thought kept me calm, kept that smile on my face, because I knew the truth would come out eventually, and it was going to be sweeter than any argument over potato salad. Let me break down how 12 properties worth that much happened while everyone thought I was just throwing money away. Started with one condo while renting downtown, house hacked it by renting the second bedroom to cover mortgage. That was the aha moment, realizing real estate wasn't just for rich people. After a couple years, refinanced, pulled equity, used it for a down payment on a duplex, did it again, bought triplex, then 4-unit building, then other states where prices were lower. Some traditional mortgages, some creative financing, some partnerships. Used BRRR method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Learned property management so I wasn't fixing toilets at midnight. Learned tax strategies, depreciation, exchanges, all the wealth-building tools. But I kept lifestyle modest, investments private. No fancy car, no designer clothes, no Instagram posts. Looked exactly like what they thought. Someone still figuring it out. Completely intentional to avoid family pressure, jealousy, drama, the phone calls asking for money. Also wanted to see how long they'd lecture me without asking real questions. My family knew one thing. I rented where I lived, therefore must not own anything, therefore financially irresponsible. Never asked about investments or strategy. To them, success meant owning the house you sleep in. Couldn't comprehend choosing to rent while owning multiple income properties. I let them stay in that ignorance because correcting them required explanations they weren't ready to hear, and their assumptions didn't change my bank account or monthly passive income that kept growing. After that trigger moment, after my brother's speech and the laughter, I made a decision. Time had come, not to show off or embarrass him, but because this pattern needed to end with truth, plain and simple. No drama, just facts. I would wait, be patient, and if he pushed one more time, I'd calmly present reality and watch his assumptions crumble. Preparation was simple because I'd tracked everything for years. Pulled out phone, opened property management app showing all 12 properties with addresses, tenants, monthly rent, occupancy status. Had spreadsheet summary, each property, approximate value, total $9.4 million. Not planning to wave it around, just ready if moment came to present clearly. No room for doubt. My emotional strategy: stay calm, voice level and friendly, maybe amused, like sharing interesting fact that never came up before, rather than dropping a bomb. Would wait for him to bring it up again. Wouldn't force it because if I brought it up myself, it'd look like bragging. When he made another comment about rent or home ownership, I'd ask one simple question first. How many properties do you own? When he answered one, I'd acknowledge it, then deliver simple truth. I own 12, worth about $9.4 million total. Let that information sit. Let it do its work. Let everyone process without me adding commentary. After today, every time my brother hears renting, he'll remember 12 mailboxes, 12 properties, checks going into my accounts, and he'll remember he had no idea. The moment came later that afternoon, after everyone ate and settled into that lazy, comfortable phase. Housing topic came up again, adults talking interest rates and renovations. My brother was holding court,
talking about updates to his house, building equity with every improvement. Then he pivoted toward me because he couldn't help himself. At least I'm building equity, unlike some people here still just handing money to a landlord every month. Made eye contact, that smirk playing at his mouth. Few people chuckled. My cousin asked, "So when are you finally going to buy? You've been renting like 10 years now." Before I could answer, brother jumped in. He doesn't get it. You can't rent forever. At some point, you have to grow up and make a real investment. That was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I calmly set down my drink, pulled out phone, took a breath. Looked at my brother, face neutral, voice casual. "Can I ask you something? Exactly how many properties do you own?" He nodded, probably thinking I wanted his advice. "One, obviously, my house, the one I actually own instead of renting." I nodded slowly, processing, then opened phone, pulled up property management dashboard, delivered the line I'd held back for years. "Cool, I own 12. My voice completely casual, like commenting on the weather. Total market value, last time I checked, roughly $9.4 million. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. People turned to look. My brother's face went through 5 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, a forced laugh, then confusion again when he realized I wasn't joking. "Wait, what?" someone said. "You own 12 what?" I held up my phone so people closest could see the screen, list of properties with addresses clearly visible.
12 properties, some single-family homes, some duplexes, couple small apartment buildings. Total market value, roughly $9.4 million. The silence that followed was beautiful, where you hear everything. Birds chirping, kids yelling, folding chairs creaking. My brother stared like I'd told him I was secretly an astronaut. "You're joking," he said, but voice was weak because he could see I wasn't. Couple relatives moved closer, looked at my phone, saw the property management app with units listed, addresses in different cities, tenant names, and lease dates. "Wait, these are all yours? You own actual apartment buildings?" Then questions started coming fast, everyone talking at once about when I started, how I started, why I never said anything. I answered briefly, gave basics, started with one small property years ago while renting, reinvested profits, learned systems, scaled up. Nothing too detailed. Then, because I couldn't resist, added one more line, voice calm but with tiny edge of satisfaction. "I still rent where I live because it makes sense for my situation, for flexibility and tax benefits. But about a dozen other families, they rent because they have to, and every month they pay me so they don't have to hear jokes at their family barbecue about still renting." Crowd looked impressed, some thoughtful, few looking at my brother. His face frozen halfway between smile and grimace, trying to play it cool but couldn't. Fake laugh came out hollow, fading into uncomfortable silence nobody knew how to fill. Barbecue continued, but everything felt different, shifted, like family dynamics rearranged in 5 minutes. People were friendlier, more respectful, asked actual questions instead of assumptions. My brother kind of disappeared into background, not obviously, but subtly, finding excuses to not be part of the main conversation. Later, after most people left, sun setting, I was helping pack up when brother approached. Could tell by the tension in his shoulders he'd been working up to this. Waited until somewhat alone by the garage, folding chairs. "You made me look stupid in front of everyone," he said, not meeting my eyes, gripping chair back harder than necessary. "Could have told me earlier, pulled me aside privately instead of flexing like that." I stopped, set down the chair, turned to face him fully. "You made yourself look stupid. I didn't flex. I answered a direct question after you spent the entire day making jokes about my financial decisions, after you lectured me about building equity and understanding the system, after you assumed you knew everything about my life without ever actually asking." He started to interrupt, but I held up hand. "You asked why I kept it secret, but I didn't. I kept my business private, which is different.
You made assumptions, decided because I rent I must not own anything, must need your guidance, and you never once actually asked me what I was doing or why, or whether maybe I had good reasons you didn't understand. Words hung in the air between us, could see him processing, anger mixing with embarrassment. Every single family event for years, you made jokes about me renting, about me wasting money, not understanding wealth, needing to grow up, and you did it publicly, turned my choices into your comedy material. Never asked if maybe I was doing something you didn't know about, never considered your understanding might be limited, never thought the person you were lecturing might own more real estate than you. Today, I simply corrected the record, showed you and everyone else that the person you've been treating like a financially illiterate child actually figured out this game long ago and built a multi-million-dollar portfolio while you were busy explaining to me how mortgages work. Brother's jaw tight, hands in pockets. Part of him wanted to argue, but facts were facts. Here's the thing. Next time you want to joke about my financial decisions, next time you feel the urge to give me advice about something you assume I don't understand, I need you to do one of two things. Either ask me actual questions about what I'm really doing and why, genuine questions where you listen instead of just waiting to lecture, or choose silence, mind your own business and let me mind mine. Because now you know, now you can't unknow it. I'm not the financially irresponsible little sibling who needs guidance. I'm the person who owns 12 front doors, 12 sets of keys, 12 properties where families pay rent into my accounts, and that's been true for years, while you were busy making assumptions. Picked up the chair again, started folding, signaling conversation was over. He stood there. Another moment, opened-mouthed like he might apologize or argue, then closed it, nodded once, tiny movement that might have been acknowledgement, and walked toward his car without saying anything else. That was fine, because I hadn't done this for apology, just to establish truth and draw a line protecting me from future assumptions and lectures I never deserved. Let me leave you with this. People love to act like they're experts on your life based on one metric, one piece of information they can see and measure. They see you renting and decide you're financially irresponsible, see you driving an old car and decide you're not successful, see you without certain markers and decide you haven't figured out life yet. They create entire narratives about who you are and what you're doing wrong, feel completely justified sharing that narrative, giving unsolicited advice and making jokes. What they don't realize is their scoreboard and yours might be measuring completely different games. Their definition of success and yours might be so fundamentally different that their advice is not just unhelpful, but completely irrelevant. That you might be winning by your own metrics while they're judging you by theirs. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just quietly becoming so strong, so successful by your own definition, that when they try to put you down one more time, when they can't resist making that last joke, the truth itself becomes the payback. Facts do all the work. You just state what's real and watch assumptions crumble under reality's weight. My brother stood at that barbecue with tongs in hand, smoke from grill drifting past his confident smirk, and said to me and everyone who could hear, "Still renting, I bet," with that tone saying he knew exactly who I was and what I was doing wrong with my life. And when he found out, when he learned the person he'd been lecturing for years owned 12 properties worth $9.4 million, when he realized his one house with 30-year mortgage was nothing compared to my portfolio generating monthly passive income from a dozen addresses, one thing became crystal clear. I don't just pay rent like he thought,
I collect rent every single month from families across multiple states. And while he's making mortgage payments on his one property, hoping it appreciates enough to fund retirement, I'm building wealth through cash flow and appreciation and tax benefits across an entire portfolio he didn't even know existed. That's the real ending. Not that I embarrassed him or won some argument, but that I proved success doesn't always look the way people expect, and the person they assume is failing might actually be the one who figured it out first.